Shalom, I'm Tony Robinson of Restoration of Torah Ministries, and today we're going to look at death, resurrection, and the number 3, part 2. So this is the second part of this teaching. Just want to go over again the goal in this series of lectures. The goal is to show whether or not the Torah and the Tanakh support a third day resurrection. Okay, in other words, does the Torah and the Tanakh teach about resurrection? Number one, and then number two, does the Torah and the Tanakh hint in any way at a connection between resurrection or the concept of resurrection and the day 3? Okay, that's all we're limited to in these studies. We're not trying to talk about whether or not Yeshua was resurrected in 3 days or three nights. That's another topic, and that's something that we do in other places. This is solely to look at, does the Tanakh teach about resurrection in the number 3? Okay. The other thing is that again, as you're learning, certain truths are only seen thematically by comparing scriptures with similar themes, okay? Once you begin to do that, then teachings, understandings, wisdom, knowledge will come forth just by making these connections. And so what we're going to see over the next, 25, 30, 40, 50 YouTube videos is that over and over and over and over again, we see the number 3 associated with resurrection. The only question is this a coincidence? And obviously it's not. This is something by divine design. So again, we're not trying to prove about Yeshua's death, burial, and resurrection. We're just trying to provide a Tanakh or Torah-based theological foundation for the concept of resurrection in the number 3. So my strategy is to divide and conquer and just first prove that there's oodles of teachings in the Torah and in the Tanakh that support the concept of a third day resurrection, okay? In fact, what I'm going to prove through these lectures is that the Torah and the Tanakh itself is the basis for the understanding of resurrection on day 3. Okay, now, what you're going to find out is that non-messianic rabbis and anti-missionaries will try to convince you that the idea of the death, burial, and resurrection of the Messiah in 3 days is pagan. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to show you that it's not pagan. And the way we're going to prove to you that it's not pagan is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to show you beyond a shadow of doubt that the idea of death, burial, and resurrection is one of the greatest teachings of the Torah and the Tanakh. And that this idea of resurrection on day number 3 is clearly taught in the Tanakh, but is hidden only because rabbis and, I might add, Christian ministers don't see it. And there are various ways to prove that. Christian ministers or teachers don't see it in the Torah and the Tanakh. They don't see resurrection in the number 3, primarily because they don't understand thematic study for the most part. The rabbis don't see it. Partly because they don't want to. Many rabbis see many of the connections, but refuse to agree and believe and make the association with Yeshua, and that's for various reasons that we can't get into right now. But many of them do see these connections, and they just they don't find them compelling enough. And but then again, even some rabbis don't understand thematic study. And in my estimation, all rabbis should understand thematic study. It's an utterly Jewish technique. It was used by the sages of Israel, by the wisest Torah scholars such as Rashi, the Rambam, the Vilna Gaon, and many other people. Ibn Ezra. The Jewish people should hold the market on this, and actually they do. The scripture we want to look at today is Hosea chapter 6, verse 1 and 2. We're going to focus on come and let us return to the Lord, for he has torn, but he will heal us. He has stricken, but he will bind us up. After 2 days, he will revive us. On the 3rd day, he will raise us up that we may live in his sight. And we're going to concentrate on verse 2. After 2 days, he will revive us. Notice the phrase, on the 3rd day, he will raise us up. and it clearly associates resurrection with the third day. And we're going to show in a second here that clearly this is about resurrection, okay? And again, one has to ask, why does the Torah and the Tanakh continually connect resurrection with the number 3? We clearly see it here. On the third day, he will raise us up, okay? So this is a clear reference to resurrection, that it will be accomplished on the third day. Now, notice the resurrection language again. Reviving, speaking of bringing something back to life, and raise us up speaks of resurrection. Okay. Now, the next thing I want you to notice is that Hosea chapter 6. Verse 2 is told in a parallelism, okay, and we've seen these before. After 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will raise us up. This is a parallelism, and remember, in parallelisms, you state the same thing twice, but you change the language. And so after 2 days is thematically connected to on the third day. He will revive us is connected to he will raise us up. So what we're saying is that a parallelism says the same thing twice. The same thing is being said here, reviving and raising up, clearly resurrection language. So now, here we go. After 2 days, it's thematically connected to on the third day. Now, you would say, well, 2 doesn't equal 3. Well, what is the connection there? 2 days is equivalent to 3 days. That is to say, 2 days is the same as 3 days in the sense that they both are a time period, okay? It's a time period here and a time period there. That's the common thematic connection between those two. And clearly, revive us right here is equal to raise us up. And again, clearly, resurrection language. Now, what I want to do is I want to just show you. Now, in the previous slide, after 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will raise us up. That was the New King James translation. Let's look at what the NIV says. It says, after 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will restore us. Okay. So as you can see, the word restore has replaced raise us up, as the New King James said. Now, which word do you think restore or raise us up paints the clearer picture of resurrection? Well, clearly raise us up paints the clearer picture. And so you wonder why they chose the word restore. The Hebrew word for revive us right here is yachayenu, which comes from the verbal root chaya, to live. So clearly we're speaking of giving life, which is the idea of resurrection. Now, the Hebrew word for restore is actually yikimenu, which comes from the verbal root kamam or kum, which means to stand erect or rise. So clearly we're speaking of raising up. So the NIV uses the word restore instead of raise up. And clearly the word kum or kamam here, which means to stand erect, is denoting the idea of raising up. So why would they translate it restore? And so by using restore instead of raise up, they obscure the idea of resurrection. It also breaks the clear parallelism equating revive with raise up versus revive with restore. That's not the idea. This is typical of the NIV. And is one of the reasons why I discourage its usage for anyone who wants to study the scriptures thematically, because of the lame paradigm that they have for translating the scriptures. They obscure many connections that you wouldn't see. Now, the last thing I want to do is I want to talk to you about the message, which is the worst one of all. In a couple of days, we'll feel better. By the third day, he'll have made us brand new. No further comments for that abomination right there. So what have we learned? The Torah and the Tanakh abounds with teachings on the third day resurrection. These teachings can only be seen thematically. Both Jewish and Christian leaders fail to see this clear thematic teaching. Hosea chapter 6 verse 2 is yet another scripture that clearly teaches and connects resurrection with the number 3. And we also learned that sometimes modern translations can obscure many thematic teachings. So that's what we have for you this time. May Adonai bless you, and we'll see you again with another teaching of this extensive teaching of how the Tanakh and the Torah speaks of and teaches resurrection associated with the number 3. May Adonai bless you.
Is my salvation, hope for a soul.